number of Americans filing for unemployment benefits increased modestly last week. China keeps its benchmark lending rates unchanged. And Moody's affirms Egypt's CAA1 long-term foreign and local currency issuer ratings and maintains its positive outlook. Welcome to the Qnews Economic Bulletin, where we bring you the latest developments shaping the global economy, from key market trends and financial updates to regional economic highlights and forecasts. We provide essential news and analysis to keep you informed. Welcome back. We start off with the United States, as the number of Americans filing for unemployment benefits increased modestly last week, indicating that the labor market remains resilient. According to the Labor Department, initial claims for state unemployment benefits rose by 5,000 to a seasonally adjusted 219,000 for the week ending February 15. This was slightly above economists' forecast of 215,000 claims. Federal employees excluded from state claims data have faced recent layoffs under Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency, created by President Trump. Their claims are reported separately under the federal unemployment program with a one-week delay. U.S. President Donald Trump has announced plans to impose fresh tariffs on a variety of imported goods, including lumber, cars, semiconductors, and pharmaceuticals within the next month or sooner. Trump announced that the tariffs, starting at 25%, aim to generate revenue for the U.S. and encourage other nations to lower their tariffs on American goods. The 25% tariff on lumber is expected to take effect around April 2nd, alongside similar duties on auto imports. He also indicated that tariffs on semiconductors and pharmaceuticals could increase significantly over the year, allowing manufacturers time to set up U.S. production facilities to avoid penalties.
Make their product in America, then they have to pay a tariff, but if they do.
U.S. President Donald Trump has announced that his administration intends to verify the strategic gold reserves stored at Fort Knox. Speaking to reporters aboard Air Force One, Trump stated that an inspection of Fort Knox would be conducted to confirm the presence of the gold reserves, as reported by Bloomberg. Trump expressed hope that everything would be in order, but warned that if the gold reserves were found missing, it would provoke significant anger within his administration. The U.S. holds approximately half of its strategic gold reserves at the Fort Knox military facility in Kentucky. Moreover, U.S. President Donald Trump has announced that his administration is considering returning 20% of the savings identified by Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency initiative directly to Americans. Trump also proposed using another 20% of the savings to reduce the federal government's debt.
We've accomplished more in 4 weeks than most administrations accomplish in 4 years. On my first day in office, I imposed an immediate federal hiring freeze, a federal regulation freeze, and a foreign aid freeze. I signed an order creating the Department of Government Efficiency and put a man named Elon Musk in charge. Thank you, Elon, for doing it. There's even under consideration a new concept where we give 20% of the Doge savings to American citizens and 20% goes to paying down debt, because the numbers are incredible.
Reuters has reported that the Trump administration is pursuing a fast-track minerals deal with Ukraine, seeking immediate access to the country's vast reserves of critical resources like graphite, uranium, titanium, and lithium, an essential component in electric car batteries. This follows President Volodymyr Zelensky's rejection of a prior U.S. proposal which aimed to give Washington a 50% stake in these resources. Sources indicate President Trump wants a simplified pact finalized quickly, allowing the finer details like ownership stakes and revenue sharing to be negotiated later.
We'll be talking to President Putin, and we'll be talking to the representatives, Zelensky and representatives from Ukraine. We got to stop it. It's carnage.
The U.S. is pushing for a fast-track minerals deal with Ukraine, seeking access to Kiev's vast reserves of critical resources. Sources say that the Trump administration is considering a simplified agreement, securing a pact quickly while leaving details, like ownership stakes, for later negotiations. This follows Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's rejection of a previous U.S. proposal that would have given Washington a 50% share of Ukraine's graphite, uranium, titanium, and lithium reserves. The deal is a key factor in shaping U.S. support for Ukraine. President Trump has suggested Kiev should grant Washington mineral concessions worth $500 billion in recognition of past military aid. Analysts know that the U.S. is now leveraging strategies often used by China in securing resource deals. While Ukraine is open to an agreement, officials insist that any deal must not appear overly exploitative. Meanwhile, Russia has already seized key mineral-rich regions in Ukraine, raising concerns over whether those resources will end up in Moscow's hands. Talks between the U.S. and Ukraine are ongoing, but the question remains, will Kiev agree to a deal, and at what cost?
Joining us from Amman is economist and specialist in oil and energy affairs, Mr. Amer Shobaki, to discuss the U.S.-Ukraine minerals deal, particularly its strategic implications, Ukraine's negotiating position, and the geopolitical impact. Sir, thank you so much for joining us on the Economic Bulletin, and let me start by asking you, what are the strategic advantages for the U.S. in securing access to Ukraine's critical minerals, particularly rare earth elements?
I think that the benefits will be gained by the United States that will extend to economic, strategic, political gains, and even related to the U.S. national security. As Ukraine is full of very precious minerals and wealth estimated at $15 trillion, we haven't seen as the deal yet, but the American proposal was 50% of these wealth and minerals, which was not approved by Ukraine. I think after this deal, the U.S. will gain approvals and concessions of obtaining such minerals and wealth. The U.S. might not need the Chinese minerals after finalizing this deal, especially that the current U.S. President Trump is trying to impose sanctions or punish China by imposing high tariffs on their goods and stopping importing some rare minerals from China. I think this deal is the survival process for the United States by obtaining such rare and vital minerals.
Now, delving into more details with you, sir, what role do Ukraine's critical minerals play in the broader context of global supply chains and particularly in the energy transition and technology sectors?
Today we have lithium, graphite, uranium, these very vital, important minerals. We are talking about lithium is highly important for electric vehicles, batteries, and also for renewable energy storages. We're talking also about the minerals for the use of electronic chips, some very rare minerals owned by Ukraine. Other minerals are used in defense industry. When we talk about electronic chips as well, we talk about the advancement of artificial intelligence. I think Russia taking control of such minerals, or the US taking control of such minerals, will guarantee advantage in the conflict between them and China. Also, the Russian control over 20% of the Ukrainian territories and a part of the mineral that this wealth will not be under the control of China, which will take Russia a little farther away from China and closer to the United States, especially in the light of what Russia is suffering from regarding the sanctions and what has been stated by the Treasury Secretary today, that the sanctions on Russia is now up for negotiation and the United States is ready to alleviate such sanctions.
Now, sir, I have to ask you, in your opinion, which party, Ukraine or the United States, stands to benefit more from such an agreement, and why?
For the recent few years, Ukraine hasn't been able to fully benefit from this mineral wealth because this wealth and these minerals require advanced technology to be extracted and explored, which is not owned by Ukraine. I think the United States also is one of the very few countries around the world that can actually benefit from the Ukrainian wealth completely. So I think that the benefit will be common between and mutual between the two parties, especially that the US is requiring the Ukrainian of like an alternative for their or they're asking them for something in exchange of the military support the US has provided Ukraine for years. I think this will be a gain and a success and advantage for the US President Trump.
Now, looking ahead, could this deal set a precedent for future U.S. foreign aid agreements being tied to resource concessions, and how might this impact global geopolitics?
Yes, this will set a precedent, and that one country takes the resources from another in exchange for aid. Some might describe this agreement as a modern occupation or middle colonization, and might describe this as the Ukrainian state is giving in to the US. It is actually a precedent in the agreement side.
Now, back to the 50-50 proposal that Washington proposed. Why did President Zelensky reject it, and what terms would be more favorable or acceptable to Kyiv?
Usually, investments are agreed upon in a satisfactory way for both parties, and I think the percentage first was 75% for Ukraine and 25% for the investor, which in this case is the United States. But with the Ukrainian debt to America, I think that the Ukrainian president has no other choice but to accept the deal. Zelensky described described this offer as selling Ukraine, and I think his acceptance now to the 50-50 deal will actually not be in his best interest, especially that he described this as a new occupation for Ukraine.
Now, President Trump has argued that the United States should get something back for its military aid to Ukraine. How common is this approach in international relations, and what are its potential risks?
Yes, of course, this establishes new principles. Each country will think very carefully before taking or accepting aid from another countries. Each country that receives aid should set some terms to accept the aid. It was a trap that Ukraine went through, and I think many countries in the future will think like 1,000 times before being trapped like this. I think now we see that nothing is free. There is everything is in exchange for something here.
Thank you so much, Mr. Aimer Shubaki, for your insights and for all the information you provided us with, and for joining us here on the Economic Bulletin. Thank you so much for being with us. And now we move to the latest developments from all over the world. The European Central Bank has announced that it has recorded another record annual loss amounting to 7.94 billion euros for the year 2024, slightly up from 7.89 billion euros in 2023. This loss is attributed to the bank's ongoing payouts to banks and the lingering effects of its previous stimulus measures, which have left it with a bloated balance sheet. The ECB emphasized that these losses do not impact its ability to conduct effective monetary policy, stating that the bank's losses in 2023 and 2024 reflect the role and necessary policy actions of the euro system in fulfilling its primary mandate of maintaining price stability. The Confederation of British Industry has noted that British manufacturers expect a modest increase in output over the next 3 months, despite facing challenges such as higher taxes, rising energy costs, and weak export demand. The Confederation's monthly balance for output expectations rose sharply to +8 in February, up from -19 in January, marking a 3-month high and aligning with its long-run average. Official data revealed that British industrial output fell by 1.7% in 2024, with a 0.8% decline in the final quarter, marking the 5th consecutive monthly drop. JP Morgan has said in a research note that a ceasefire or peace deal to end the Russia-Ukraine conflict would be a net positive for nearby emerging market currencies. However, much of this potential boost may already be priced in. The bank maintained a neutral stance on Ukraine's government bonds, citing uncertainty over the details and sustainability of a peace deal. While a ceasefire appears closer, the likelihood of a lasting agreement acceptable to all sides remains unclear. Sovereign debt markets currently price in a 70% chance of a durable peace deal. China's Commerce Ministry spokesperson He Yadong has stated that China has been making every effort to advance negotiations with the European Union regarding electric vehicle tariffs and trade. He emphasized China's hope that the European Union will listen to industry voices and foster bilateral investment cooperation through dialogue and consultation. In addition, the ministry confirmed that China's anti-subsidy investigations into EU dairy and pork imports are still ongoing, underscoring the complexities in trade relations between the two economies. China has decided to keep its benchmark lending rates unchanged at the monthly fixing, prioritizing financial and currency stability over aggressive monetary stimulus. The one-year loan prime rate remains at 3.10%, while the five-year loan prime rate stays at 3.60%. This decision comes as Beijing faces challenges such as a weakening yuan and narrowing net interest margins at commercial banks, which limits its ability to ease monetary policy. Additionally, renewed trade tensions with the U.S. under President Donald Trump's administration have added external pressure. The Australian Bureau of Statistics has reported that the country's labor market presented a mixed picture in January, with robust job creation but a slight uptick in the unemployment rate. Net employment rose by 44,300 in January after a 60,000 increase in December, far surpassing the expected 20,000 rise, driven entirely by a 54,100 jump in full-time jobs. Annual jobs growth accelerated to 3.5%, but the unemployment rate edged up 4.1% from 4% as labor force expansion outpaced job creation. This is partly due to a record high 67.3% participation rate, fueled by more women joining the workforce. South Korea's industry ministry has announced that it has provisionally decided to impose tariffs of up to 38% on Chinese steel plate imports. This decision follows an investigation into alleged dumping of steel plates, which are widely used in shipbuilding and construction. The investigation was initiated after South Korean companies lodged complaints regarding a surge in low-cost steel plates from China, the world's largest steel producer. The ministry's preliminary findings revealed sufficient grounds to suspect the dumped imports were causing significant harm to the domestic steel industry. Moody's has affirmed Egypt's CAA1 long-term foreign and local currency issuer ratings and maintained its positive outlook, reflecting a promising trajectory for the country's fiscal and economic recovery. The positive outlook, which has been in place since March 2024, highlights the prospects for an improvement in Egypt's debt service burden and external profile. Moody's noted that Egypt has made significant strides in fiscal and external rebalancing, emphasizing the strengthening of its foreign exchange buffers. As of January 2025, Egypt's liquid foreign exchange reserves were projected to reach $36 billion, a positive indicator of the economy's stabilization. The Central Administration of Statistics in Kuwait has announced that the Consumer Price Index rose by 2.5% year-on-year at the end of January. Inflation in Kuwait also increased by 0.15% on a monthly basis compared to December. The year-on-year rise in inflation was attributed to increases in the prices of key groups, particularly food, education, and clothing, while excluding transportation costs. The report highlighted that the food and beverage group saw a significant increase of 5.19% in January compared to the same month in 2024. Gold prices surged to a record high on Thursday as fears of a global trade war sparked by U.S. President Donald Trump's tariff threats fueled safe haven demand for the precious metal. Spot gold was steady at $2,930.19 an ounce after hitting $2,954.69 earlier in the session, its 10th record high this year. U.S. gold futures gained 0.4% to $2,946.90. Gold, a safe haven in times of uncertainty, has gained 12% so far this year. In markets, global shares witnessed a collective decline during Thursday's session. Futures for the S&P 500 declined 0.88%, while futures for the Dow Jones Industrial Average lost 1.43%. In Europe, France's CAC 40 was up 0.11%, while Germany's DAX decreased 0.38%, and Britain's FTSE 100 dipped 0.62%. In Asia, Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index dropped 1.60%, the Shanghai Composite inched down 0.02%. The Nikkei 225 lessened 1.15%. That's all for now. Here's a wrap-up of what we've covered. Number of Americans filing for unemployment benefits increased modestly last week. China keeps its benchmark lending rates unchanged. And Moody's affirms Egypt's CAA1 long-term foreign and local currency issuer ratings and maintains its positive outlook. This concludes our economic bulletin for today. Don't forget to follow Qnews on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at QNewsEG to stay informed. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for more updates on Qnews.